you're watching Gearz, brought to you by Cornwell Tools, the choice of professionals.
When it comes to working in a shop, obviously there's a lot of great tools out there to help you build some really awesome stuff. But ironically, one of the most important tools is a camera, because it not only helps you document your project, but it helps you solve problems, identify parts, and even take some final photographs when everything's all finished. But even though a lot of us think we take good pictures, there's a big difference between a good picture and something that looks like a piece of artwork. Take a look. Get Lit Photography was created by Kurt Lerner with the goal of taking automotive photography to a level that most people cannot even imagine.
Get Lit was really the culmination of an understanding of the way light worked when it came to automotive photography. And the ability to control light is critical to a successful image.
So instead of just selecting a vehicle, setting a few lights, and snapping a few pictures, Get Lit focuses on the three most important aspects of a picture and pushes them to the extreme limit. The results are pictures that literally jump off the surface.
You know, there's exposure, lighting, and then there's the composition. And probably the toughest thing people truly find is composition. You know, some of it you can clean up in your post-production work, but really it's hard to have a good photo without having a good basis or a good basic start for it.
Just so the whole truck becomes a little bit more centered rather than off to the right and facing to the right.
To make this kind of picture is a long, tedious process.
More like that, where it's kind of looking into the shot rather than looking out of the shot.
Starting with the positioning of the vehicle, establishing the background, and locking down the camera.
And open.
Then the process begins of snapping hundreds of pictures in pitch darkness
And close.
with focused lighting positioned to bring out every minute detail of the car. A shoot like this can take anywhere from 1 to 3 hours.
It's shot in complete darkness, which means I can control the light, I can control how the light falls, I can control the amount of light, and I can control the direction that the light comes from.
Okay, once the shooting is done and they've captured hundreds of images all over the truck, now comes the tedious job of putting it all together into one master image. And this is where the creativity comes in.
I'm taking these little bits and pieces from each image, chucking the rest of the image and just using that little bit. So I'm layering together 100, 200, 300 images, little bits and pieces to assemble this final piece.
Another unique aspect of Get Lit is that the final pictures are printed on metal and in sizes that are only limited by your imagination.
Printed on metal, and the gloss on them is just phenomenal the bigger you get. So it gets to be very, very impressive. From a size standpoint, people have, I mean, it's unlimited. I can do it down to, you know, 1/4-inch increments, but by far the most common size, and I refer to them by the long edge of them, is either a 24, a 36, or a 48, or a 60, 4 sizes, 60-inch sizes. I can go all the way to 10 feet, and I've done one of those.
Now obviously this is not a quick, cheap process, but the result is something you've got to see to believe. With the way the picture is shot, it looks like the image is bathed in light from behind, leading most people to look in back for some sort of backlighting, but you're not going to find any. Also, the sharpness and attention to detail is so fine that there is absolutely nothing out of focus anywhere in the picture, including the background details.
And when somebody walks into the booth and they see my gallery there and they start looking at them, the most common thing that I have when somebody walks in is the first thing they do is they walk up, they look at the image, they slow down, they look again, and then they look at whoever they're with and says, I've seen these before. These are really cool.
So if you want a quick picture of your project, go ahead and grab your cell phone and snap a few. But if you want something that's a piece of art that you can hang in your man cave or your living room, and everybody that sees it is going to love it, including your wife, well, Get Lit Photography is where you need to go.
Metal. It's one of the key components of what we build and fabricate with. But if you can't shape it and cut it, you can't build with it. For over 50 years, Woodward Fab has been supplying the tools and technical advice to get the job done right. Bead rollers, brakes, shears, tubing benders. You'll find what you need whether you're a professional metal worker or just starting out. Woodward Fab, shaping metal since 1966.
There is no doubt that one of the main features of any cool car or truck is the sound. If you ask any number of hot rodders out there, they will tell you that the sound of the engine is paramount to having a cool vehicle.
The hot rod's about power, so it's got to have a healthy motor to it.
Okay, motor.
And the sound of it is important.
Yeah.
It's got to have a nice, healthy, throaty sound to it.
We got to have the sound or else it's not a car.
It's a color, it's a stance, it's a wheel, it's a tire, and it's sound.
In my mind, it's got to have throat. When you fire that puppy up, it isn't like all the birds going to fall out of the sky because they can't breathe, but people are going to know you're backing it out of the garage.
I think sound is super important, but I think it's almost more of an indication of what you got under the hood more than the decibels coming out of your tailpipes.
However, engine sound is not the only noise that a car needs to make. A proper stereo system is just as important to most car enthusiasts, and this began in the early days of hot rodding when people cruised Maine while cranking their old radios up. But a lot has changed in car audio since then. Radios gave way to in-car record players. Those became 8-track tapes. Those morphed into cassettes. Then we got CDs. And now we're on to MP3s. And of course, the speakers and volume got bigger and bigger as well. And that brings us up to today, where a whole new generation of car enthusiasts are looking to put a custom sound system in their project or upgrade what's in their daily driver. So today we're going to walk you through some of the components that are available so you can build a custom system or upgrade what you got.
Stereos in the new vehicles, they're not bad. Well, let's be honest, they don't sound bad. Now, do they sound as good as they could? No, and that's what the high-end audio is really doing, is to recreate an actual live performance, and the whole purpose of car audio is to take the car out of the picture, literally.
Now, obviously, the first thing that you need is some sort of a radio or a head unit or receiver that's going to play the music format that you want. Now, if it's something more modern like MP3s or satellite radio or even CDs, well, you can buy brand new units that'll fit pretty much anything. However, if you want something more vintage, let's say you're doing some vintage gauges and you want some sort of a vintage vibe inside the vehicle, well, you can find these old radios, but you're going to have to hunt them down at a swap meet. Now, once you have the music source taken care of, now you can start focusing on making it sound better. The first thing you need, like any real hot rod, is more power. And the way to get that with a sound system is with an amplifier. Now, to get the full benefit of the extra power coming out of the amp, some quality speakers are a must. But before you think a zillion speakers is the answer, think again. The right speakers in the right location is the key to great car audio.
If you go to a concert, your performers are in front of you. They're not in front of you and behind you at the same time. So I'm not a big fan of a lot of what we call rear fill, sound behind you. I focus on putting the power, the speakers up front, because that makes the biggest difference.
Using a matched set of speakers is also important. Now, it could be a combination of separate tweeters and woofers like this, or you could go with the bigger coaxials that combine the woofer and the tweeter. But whichever way you go, and no matter how many speakers you use, they need to match the power output of the amplifier.
You know, good power up front, good speaker placement, and then your power behind that, and then of course, you know, adding a little bit of bass, which most of the new cars don't sound bad. They just really lack the bottom end.
Another key component, if you want that kick and bass, is some sort of a subwoofer. Now these obviously are a much bigger speaker. They usually come in an enclosure like this in different shapes and sizes, and you can mount them back in your cargo area. You can throw them under your seat, behind your seat, any place where you have some extra room. Unfortunately, not everybody wants to do that. Some people want to hide these, and that's fine. You can get the speaker separate, then you can mount them in your door panels, you can make a custom enclosure, anything your imagination can come up with. But you need all three components. You need bass, you need mids, and you need highs if you want a quality sound system. The final ingredient, and the one that a lot of people overlook, are quality cables and wires and fuses and electrical connections. To skimp here and not get some good stuff when you spent this kind of money is crazy, because you will never get the full benefit out of all this if you don't have the wire that'll handle it. All right, that's all there is to it. See, it's pretty simple. Select the kind of system that you want, match up all the components, and spend time hooking it up right. If you do that, you're going to have a sound system that will kick when you are ready to crank it up.
For more than 50 years, Kicker has been rocking the planet on anything that moves. Kicker, the legacy continues.
And now, Parts Bin.
Most people know that Holley's Sniper fuel injection system is a great way to convert from a carburetor to a fuel injection. However, a lot of people shy away from it because of the hassle. The hassle of making your distributor and your ignition system and all that other stuff work with fuel injection. Well, Holley has taken that hassle away with the HyperSpark line of products. Now, as you can see, the first one we've got here is a HyperSpark distributor. It's got a billet housing, it's got a Hall Effects crank trigger in there, so it's extremely accurate, and it's designed to drop right in place of your factory distributor. If you're upgrading that, you might want to put in an ignition box. And they've got the HyperSpark ignition box for that. This will give you the spark energy that you need to get the most out of that fuel that's going in. And if you're going to upgrade that, you also need to upgrade your coil. And there is the HyperSpark coil to do that. The best part is, all of these are designed to work together and work right with the Sniper fuel injection. So now your fuel, your timing, and your spark are all working together to give you the most power and the best economy from idle all the way to wide open throttle. So if you're thinking about taking off your carburetor, putting on a Sniper fuel injection, you're going to have to do something with your distributor and your coil anyway. You might as well go the HyperSpark system and get the best out of your fuel injection. If you're running a diesel engine, you know that over time the injectors will start to form deposits that can eventually lead to sticky injectors, poor fuel economy, and loss of power. Fortunately, there is a simple fix to this problem by pouring in Hot Shot's secret Diesel Extreme every 6,000 miles. Now, this will not only deep clean your entire fuel system, but also boost cetane up to 7 points for better power and fuel economy, and it will even reduce DPF by up to 50%. That's a lot of benefit from a simple additive that offers a money-back guarantee if you don't like it. Hot Shot's secret Diesel Extreme, the best way to treat your fuel system. If you've ever installed a Tremec transmission into your project, you know there's a lot going on when you start wrestling one of these things into place. There's the alignment of the bell housing, the dowel pins, the clutch plate, all kinds of stuff. Well, American Powertrain decided they can help you out with that, and they came out with this Tremec alignment plug. Now, this may not look like much, but it does a lot. First of all, it slides into place and it protects this rubber seal from impacts or damage. Then it also keeps a seal around the rubber plug and it keeps fluid from dripping out when you start rolling this thing around. But that's not all. If you look inside, you can see that there's little splines inside there. Now those interact with the splines on your output shaft. Then you have these finger grips, and that allows you to turn the guts of the transmission so you can move that input shaft and line it up with your clutch plate when you're putting them together. This means no more reaching for plugs or a rubber glove to seal the end of the tranny, or using an old yoke to rotate the shaft. Now all you need is the Tremec alignment plug from American Powertrain. There's no question that one of the most popular modifications to do to a classic car or truck is upgrading the stock steering column to a modern tilt unit. So I developed the Retrofit column, which is designed to bolt in the stock location of select vehicles without any modifications. The question is, what vehicles do they fit? Well, if you have a 69 through 73 Nova, your time has come, because has a Retrofit column for those cars. Check it out. Now, the first thing you notice is all the standard cool stuff, the full tilt, the turn signals, the emergency flashers. But this also has a factory-style key on the column, which is really cool. And as you can see, this is for a floor shift, but you can also get them for a column shift if you put an automatic in it. And then they come with all the hookups. You have the ignition relay module and everything to literally bolt this in place of your stock column. So if you're thinking of upgrading the column on your classic Nova, we know you are, can help you out. You know, one of the first true freedoms you experience as a kid is that first bicycle. Man, it becomes your transportation to the world, or at least the local neighborhood. And in my neighborhood, man, we all had bikes. And we'd stick playing cards in the spokes, and we'd suck on black licorice, make it look like we were big biker dudes, and it was magic. But a bike wasn't just about transportation. No, it became an extension of your personality. And there were all kinds of bikes out there. There were 10 speeds, there were mountain bikes, there were Stingrays, there were BMX bikes, and they all had their strengths and weaknesses. And that's where the idea for the story of the purple bicycle came from. Because just like a bike might wish it had the talents or skills of another bike, so do we sometimes overlook our God-given talents and wish we had somebody else's talents, skills, because they seem to be better than ours. It's a simple lesson, but something we all need to be reminded of from time to time.
And now, Tool 10, brought to you by Cornwell Tools, the choice of professionals.
If you work on cars or trucks very much, you either have or have needed a torque wrench. Now, as most people know, they look similar to a standard ratchet, but they are completely different. Mostly because they will allow you to dial in the specific torque that you need to put on that fastener. And when you reach that torque, they'll click and tell you to stop cranking on it. This is extremely important if you're building engines, transmissions, rear ends, suspensions, or anything else that requires precision, uniform assembly. Now, the most common size of torque wrench is the 3/8 drive fixed head torque wrench like this. This will crank from 20 foot-pounds all the way up to 100 foot-pounds. So it's perfect for most automotive applications. Now, if you need something heavier than that, you need to step up to one of these big boys. Now, this cranks from 50 foot-pounds all the way up to 250 foot-pounds, has a flex head on it. This is obviously for cranking on some big, heavy bolts. On the flip side of that, this little guy in here doesn't do foot-pounds at all. This measures in inch-pounds. As you can see, this is a little 1/4-inch drive, inch-pound torque wrench. This is perfect for doing precision assemblies on aluminum or stainless steel. So as you can see, it is important that you reach for the right wrench, because if you don't, you're going to be breaking off bolts left and right. Also, one final tip when it comes to a torque wrench: make sure that you release the tension on the spring before you put it away in the case, because if you don't, that can mess up the calibration of the wrench and it won't be accurate. And and that's the whole point of having a torque wrench. It needs to be accurate. Now, I know these are not cheap, but you gotta have them, and if you take care of them, they'll last you a lifetime.
And now, what are you working on? Brought to you by Woodward Fabrication, selling quality metalworking equipment since 1966. And Mouse Blocker, protecting your vehicle.
Today's What Are You Working On comes from Daryl. He's in Indiana, and his project is a 1972 Dodge Demon. Now, Daryl said he first saw this car many, many years ago sitting in his buddy Fletcher's garage. Now, they were both Mopar guys, so they had a bond there, but Fletcher was not selling the car. So for 20 years, Daryl tried to talk him out of this car until finally one day Daryl was like, okay, you want the car? I'll sell it to you. So Daryl ran over there, drug this thing home, and started cleaning it up. Now, one of the surprises he got is when he put fire to it, just to check the electrical, everything came on. He's like, I wonder if this thing will start. So he hit the key and that thing roared to life, racing engine. He said it was awesome. So he knew he had a good car. So the body work began. Now, the first thing he did was replace the inner fenders because those had been cut out. He said that was the first time he had done something like that. It went really well. So then he decided, I got to make this thing more street worthy. So he rebuilt the front suspension, put disc brakes on it, and he also decided that he had to detune that engine a little bit because it's got to run on pump gas. So we did that. Now he's waiting to do the floors because unfortunately the floors had been cut out and not done very well. So that's what he's waiting to do now. He says once the weather warms up, he'll jump in on those floors. Now his plan for the car is to just have a down and dirty street car. And he says the first person that's going to drive this car is his buddy Fletcher. That's a great story, man. That's what car guys do. I love this. So to recognize such a cool project, we went to the guys at Woodward Fab, and we're going to give you one of these manual tubing benders. Now, as you can see, this thing bolts to the floor and then allows you to manually bend some mild gauge tubing. So this will serve you well while you're working on those floors. Also, we're going to give you a Gearz fender cover so you can protect that paint when you're working on the car. And then we're going to give you one of these deluxe project planning books. Now this will allow you to keep track of everything you've done to that car. Then we're going to give you a Sergeant Rock die cast, and we're going to give you some Gearz coffee cars so you can not only enjoy the coffee in there, but also see what collectible sticker you might have. Then finally, we're going to give you a whole mouse blocker setup. Now this allows you to keep the mice out of your car and your shop, so that is awesome. Now, for the rest of you guys, if you want to get in on this and get your projects featured on the show, you got to send them to us. Go to our website, go to Gearz Nation, and submit it into What Are You Working On? The website's also the place to find out more information on any products you may have seen on the show, any Gearz merchandise, and how to join Gearz Nation. Also, make sure you check out our social media. That's Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, all at Official Stacey David. YouTube is also the place to view all of your favorite Gearz episodes, as well as the Gearz Restoration Series and our full project builds that follow a project from beginning to end. And finally, if you're a radio person, be sure and check out our podcast, Tales of a Gearhead. All right, that wraps it up for us today. Hopefully this inspires you to get out there and start working on something. It can be an old race car, it can be something that you drug out of a field, just as long as you're the one working on it. We'll see you next time.